At 1:47 in the morning, Harold Mercer grabbed nurse Elena Brooks by the sleeve and refused to let go. Not hard. He didn't have the strength for that, but hard enough to stop her. "Mr. Mercer?" The 74-year-old man stared at her with an urgency she hadn't seen during the first 3 hours of her shift. He opened his mouth. A broken sound came out. Then another. Harold squeezed his eyes shut in frustration. "Don't force it." His eyes snapped open. Clearly, it couldn't wait. He pointed toward the small whiteboard Elena had been using with him. "You want to write?" One blink. "Yes." She placed the marker in his hand. It slipped. He grabbed it again. The first letter took nearly 10 seconds. C. Then A. A. By the time he finished the second word, sweat had gathered across his forehead. Elena leaned closer. "Call her." "Call who?" Harold pointed toward the plastic belongings bag beside the chair. Inside were his wallet, keys, reading glasses, a folded bus ticket, and an old address book held together with a rubber band. Harold tapped the book. Elena opened it. Several names had been crossed out. One hadn't. Rachel Mercer. A phone number sat beneath it. "Rachel." One blink. "Your daughter." One blink. "Does she know you're here?" Two blinks. "No." Dot. Elena checked the clock. 1:51 a.m. Harold was being transferred to a neurological center before dawn. His speech had already worsened since admission. Maybe tomorrow he'd communicate better. Maybe he wouldn't. "You need me to call her now." Harold reached for the marker. His first attempt made only a black line. He tried again. "Now." Elena picked up the phone. Rachel answered on the 5th ring. "Hello. Is this Rachel Mercer?" A pause. "Yes. My name is Elena Brooks. I'm a nurse at St. Matthew's Hospital. I'm taking care of your father." Silence. "What happened?" "He had a stroke. He's stable. But he's having serious trouble communicating." Rachel inhaled, then asked something Elena wasn't expecting. "Why are you calling me?" Elena looked at Harold. "Because he asked me to." Another pause. "You're sure?" "Yes." "He actually asked for me?" "Yes." Rachel's voice hardened. "What does he want?" "I don't know yet." "Then why now?" Elena glanced at the clock. "He's being transferred around 5:30. I can't promise how well he'll communicate later." Rachel said nothing. Finally, "Visiting hours are over." "I know. They won't let me upstairs." Elena looked through the glass toward the locked unit doors. "I'll meet you downstairs." At 2:06 a.m., Elena opened those doors herself. A woman in jeans and a dark sweater stood outside. "Rachel." She nodded. "Where is he?" Elena led her down the hall. But 10 feet from Harold's room. Rachel stopped. Harold saw her. His face changed immediately. Rachel didn't move. Elena lowered her voice. "Are you okay?" Rachel stared at her father. "He hasn't wanted to see me in 11 years. Elena looked from Rachel to Harold. "You haven't spoken in 11 years? Not a real conversation." Harold reached toward his daughter. Rachel stopped before he could touch her. "No." His hand fell back onto the blanket. Elena suddenly realized she'd opened a door without knowing what was behind it. Rachel looked at her. "What did he tell you?" "Almost nothing. He wrote that he wanted me to call you." Rachel gave a humorless laugh. "Of course he did." Harold made a strange sound. Rachel looked at him. "What?" He tried again. "Nothing." That must be frustrating. The bitterness was impossible to miss. Elena said, I don't know what happened between you two. My mother died 11 years ago. Harold looked away. She had ovarian cancer. By the end, the treatment wasn't helping anymore. Rachel folded her arms. My mom wanted hospice. Harold's jaw tightened. She asked me to help explain it to him because he wouldn't hear her. Rachel looked directly at her father. You remember? One blink. Rachel continued. I told him what she wanted. That she wasn't giving up. That she was tired and wanted to go home. Her voice tightened. He decided I'd convinced her to die. Elena stayed silent. He told me if I'd loved her enough, I would have convinced her to keep fighting. Harold's eyes filled. Rachel noticed. Don't. He froze. You don't get to cry now because I'm standing here. Rachel picked up her purse. I came because you said he'd had a stroke. I wasn't going to let him die thinking nobody cared. She looked at Harold. He knows now. She turned toward the door. Harold struck the bed rail. Once. Then again. Rachel stopped. He pointed urgently toward his belongings. Before Elena could move, someone appeared in the doorway. Elena. Dana Price, the night charge nurse. She looked at Rachel. Then the clock. Then Elena shouted. Outside. Elena followed. Dana lowered her voice. You brought her onto the unit. He specifically requested her. Visiting hours ended at 9. He's transferring before dawn. You call me before making that exception. I know. Dana studied her. You knew I'd possibly say no. Elena didn't answer. That was answer enough. Dana exhaled. I'm not removing his daughter right now, but document this. No other visitors, and we'll discuss how you handled it after shift. Elena nodded. When she returned, Rachel was standing over Harold's belongings. He kept pointing. Wallet, keys, glasses, address, book, tire. Then Rachel lifted the folded bus ticket. Her expression changed. The date was today's. The destination was Springfield, her city. Rachel looked at Harold. You were coming to me? One blink. For the first time since she'd arrived, Rachel didn't look angry. She looked confused. Rachel sat down. Not beside Harold, but she sat. You bought this today? One blink. Before the stroke. One blink. Rachel looked at Elena. He lives almost 3 hours away. Looks like he planned to make the trip. Rachel turned back. For what? Harold tried speaking. Nothing useful came out. He struck the mattress. Elena moved closer. Stop. You're exhausting yourself. He glared at her. I know. She pulled over the whiteboard and drew 2 large boxes. Yes. No. Let's simplify it. Harold pointed to yes. Elena asked, You were going to Rachel's house? Yes. To tell her something? Yes. To ask her for something? He paused. No, die. Rachel leaned forward. Then why? Harold pointed toward his belongings again. We found the ticket. He shook his head. Elena crouched. At the bottom of the bag sat a long white envelope. Rachel's name was written across it. Harold pointed. Rachel didn't touch it. What is that? Harold stared at her. Rachel looked at Elena. I don't want it. You don't have to open it. Harold's face fell. Rachel stood. This is what he does. He decides when we're going to talk. Harold watched her. 11 years ago, I would have answered on the first ring. She nodded toward the envelope. Now he gets sick and suddenly, I'm supposed to read some letter, Elena said quietly. You came because part of you needed to know why he asked for you. Rachel looked away. That isn't the same as forgiving him. I know. Elena nodded toward the ticket. But he bought that before he knew he'd end up here. Rachel stared at it. 3 hours. A bus ticket. Her address still sitting in his book after 11 years. Finally, she took the envelope. Did you write this today? No. This week? No. This month? No. Rachel looked at the handwriting. You had my address all this time. One blink. She laughed softly. I sent you Christmas cards for 4 years. Harold looked down. I called until you changed your number. His fingers tightened around the blanket. Rachel stared at him. So, don't act like you couldn't find me. Harold reached for the marker. His hand refused to cooperate. Once. Twice. 3 times. Rachel looked away. Forget it. Harold hit the board against his thigh. Elena caught it. Being angry at your hand isn't going to make it work. He glared at her. We'll find another way. Rachel looked down at the envelope, then slipped one finger under the flap. Harold went completely still. She tore it open. 2 pieces of paper were inside. The first was yellowed stationery folded twice. Rachel recognized it instantly. That's Mom's. She unfolded it. Her eyes moved across the handwriting, then stopped. When did she write this? Harold couldn't answer. Rachel read aloud. Harold, this is my decision. Rachel didn't put this idea in my head. She listened when I was scared you wouldn't. Rachel's voice softened. She is trying to help me leave this life the way I want to. She lowered the note. Did you see this? Harold pointed to Noperchide. Relief flickered across Rachel's face. Maybe that explained everything. Maybe grief had created a terrible misunderstanding. She opened the second page. It was Harold's handwriting. The first sentence read, Rachel, I've started this letter so many times that I'm embarrassed to count. Rachel continued, then stopped. Her entire expression changed. The truth is, your mother's note didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. She read it again, slower, then stared at Harold. What does that mean? His face collapsed. Rachel looked down. I knew June was the one who wanted hospice. I knew you didn't convince her. I knew she asked you to help because I wouldn't listen. Rachel's hand began to shake. You knew. One blink. She stood. You knew Mom wanted to stop treatment? One blink. You knew I was doing what she asked? One blink. And you still told me I killed her. Harold tried to speak. Don't. He stopped. Rachel looked back at the page. I couldn't be angry at June for leaving. I couldn't admit I spent months refusing to hear how tired she was. And I couldn't stand looking at myself. Rachel stopped reading, then finished the sentence silently. Her eyes rose. So you made me carry it. Harold was crying. You weren't confused. Rachel's voice became quieter. You punished me because blaming me hurt less than blaming yourself. Harold looked down. Rachel folded the paper. I should have stayed home. She turned. Harold tried to push himself upright. The monitor immediately pressed it. Elena steadied him. Stay back. Rachel stopped. Don't hurt yourself trying to stop me. Harold shook his head desperately. Rachel looked at him. You want to answer me now? His mouth moved. Nothing. Rachel's face hardened. Exactly. And Elena saw the real danger. Harold's silence had started the night as a medical problem. Now it was becoming another wound. If Rachel walked out while he still couldn't answer her, she might spend the next 11 years believing his silence meant exactly what it had meant before. Refusal. Elena grabbed another whiteboard. No. Rachel turned. No what? He's not done. He can't talk. Then we stop asking him to. Elena wrote the alphabet across the board in large rows. Harold watched her. I'll point. You blink on the letter? Rachel looked skeptical. That could take forever. Then we'd better start. The system was painfully slow. Elena pointed. A. May. B. C. Harold blinked. C. Again. A. B. C. D. E. Blink. Elena. This is ridiculous, Rachel said. I know. Harold raised his eyebrows. Elena looked at him. Don't start. For a second Rachel almost smiled. Then they continued. The first attempt failed because Elena misread a blink. The second produced the wrong letter. On the third they finally got 2 words. Not asking. Rachel stared at the board. Not asking what? Harold looked directly at her. Rachel folded her arms. Forgiveness. Harold pointed sharply toward number dice. Elena clarified. You're not asking her to forgive you? Yes. Rachel stared at him. Then why am I here? Harold looked toward the alphabet again. Before Elena could begin, Dana appeared. Elena. Dana held a transfer sheet. They moved him up. How far? 4:45. Elena checked the clock. 3:58. Less than an hour. He's exhausted, Dana said. He's communicating. And you're the nurse who brought an unauthorized visitor onto a secured unit. Elena knew exactly what Dana was saying. She could keep behaving like she hoped nobody would notice what she'd done. Or she could own it. I should have called you before I let Rachel in. Dana waited. I didn't because I thought you'd tell me no. Probably would have asked more questions first. I know. Elena glanced at Harold. But this isn't just a social visit anymore. He's alert. He's oriented. He's actively trying to resolve something he couldn't communicate when he arrived. Dana looked into the room. Rachel wasn't yelling. Harold wasn't agitated. They were waiting for Elena. I want to document this as a patient communication need until transport arrives. Dana studied her. If he gets too exhausted, you stop. Yes. If Rachel becomes disruptive, she leaves? Dana nodded. Document everything. She started walking away, then turned. Next time, Elena knew. Advocate before I break the rule. Exactly. Elena returned to the room. Rachel had put her coat on. I've heard enough. Harold pointed urgently toward the alphabet. He admitted it, Rachel said. What else is there? Elena looked at her. Maybe nothing that changes the past. Rachel waited. But there might be something that changes what you leave believing tonight. Rachel looked at Harold, then slowly removed her coat. 10 minutes. Elena sat down. Short sentences, she told Harold. He looked offended. That means you heard me. They started again. The next message took 11 minutes. Rachel paced while Elena worked through letters. Harold made mistakes. Elena made more. At one point, Rachel muttered, "This is ridiculous." Harold looked at her. "I meant the system." His eyebrows rose. Against her will, Rachel laughed. 1 second. Maybe less. But Harold saw it. Don't get excited. His mouth twitched. Then Elena finished the phrase. You owe me nothing. Rachel stopped. What does that mean? Harold pointed toward the words. I know what they say. She took a breath. No forgiveness. Yes. You don't expect me to forgive you. Yes. You don't expect me to come back? Harold hesitated. Then. Yes. Rachel's expression shifted. You don't expect anything? Yes. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Rachel sat beside him, closer than before. Then why find me? Harold looked toward the letter. Rachel picked it up. There was another paragraph. She read, I've spent 11 years telling myself that calling you would only open the wound again. She paused. But the truth is, I was afraid you'd answer. Rachel looked at him. He held her gaze. Because if you answered, I would have to say out loud that you did nothing wrong. Rachel lowered the page. You could have called. One blink. You could have written. One blink. You had 11 years. Harold closed his eyes. Rachel looked down. That's what I can't get past. He opened them. I wanted one sentence from you back then. Her voice broke. I'm sorry. Harold's eyes filled. That's all. She held up the pages. Now there are paragraphs. She shook her head. And somehow it's harder. Harold's hand rested open on the blanket. He didn't reach for her. Rachel noticed. I can't give those years back. One blink. I can't pretend this fixes them. One blink. I don't know if I forgive you. Harold blinked again. Rachel looked at Elena. Is he saying he understands? Ask him. Do you understand? Yes. Do you think what you did was okay? No, I so. Rachel swallowed. Harold looked toward the alphabet. Elena checked the time. Last one. They began. The first word came quickly. I, oh, then, was. The third took longer. Finally Elena wrote. Wrong. I was wrong. Rachel stared at it. Her father had probably spoken millions of words during his life. None seemed to have cost him more than those 3. Rachel wiped her cheek. Yeah. Harold closed his eyes. She leaned closer. Yeah, you were. Nothing miraculous happened. Harold didn't suddenly regain his voice. Rachel didn't forgive 11 years before sunrise. She simply stayed in the chair. For a while that was enough. Rachel looked at him. My son is 21 now. Harold's eyes widened. He remembers you. She paused. But barely. Harold looked down. You missed a lot. One blink. If he doesn't want to see you, you don't get to punish him for that too. Yes. And I'm not promising Sunday dinners or Christmas. Yes. I might be furious again tomorrow. Harold's mouth almost formed a smile. Rachel narrowed her eyes. That wasn't funny. His eyebrows lifted. For the first time, she smiled back. It vanished quickly. But it happened. Rachel looked toward June's note. Mom was worried about us while she was dying. Harold lowered his eyes. That sounds like her. Rachel wiped her cheek. She packed snacks for 20-minute drives. Harold's shoulders moved with a silent laugh. Rachel shook her head. You were worse. She only packed them because you complained. Another tiny smile. Then Rachel became serious again. I miss her. Harold nodded. I was so angry at you that sometimes I forgot you were the only other person who missed her the way I did. Harold looked at her. That doesn't excuse what you did. Yes, it just means both things can be true. Harold's eyes filled. The door opened. Dana stood there with the transport team. They're ready. Rachel straightened immediately. Harold looked at her. I'll follow you. He didn't react. Rachel understood. Promises had not meant much between them for a long time. She took out her phone and entered the neurological center's address, then showed him the screen. I'm going. Harold stared at it. I know. You don't have to believe me yet. The transport staff prepared the bed. Elena gathered Harold's belongings. Wallet, keys, reading glasses, bus ticket, address, book, envelope. Then she reached for the whiteboard. The original words were still there. Call her crooked, uneven. The C, barely recognizable. Elena raised the eraser. Wait. Rachel pulled out her phone and photographed the board. Elena smiled. You want to keep it? I don't think the hospital's giving away whiteboards. Probably not. Elena copied the two words onto a small sheet of paper. Call her. She folded it and handed it to Rachel. The transport staff unlocked the wheels. Harold's hand slipped from beneath the blanket. Rachel looked at it. She hesitated, then took it. Harold looked at her. Don't make this more than it is. He waited. I don't know what happens next. His thumb moved slightly against her hand. I don't forgive you yet. His eyes filled. Rachel tightened her fingers. But I'm still here. Harold closed his eyes. One blink. Rachel walked beside his bed until the secured doors opened. Then she had to let go. I'll meet you there. The doors closed behind him. Rachel remained beside Elena. She looked down at the folded note. Did you know he'd get me here? No. Then why did you break the rules? Elena thought about it. I didn't know if it would fix anything. Rachel waited. I just knew he was trying harder to say those two words than most people try to say 1,000. Rachel looked at the note. You could get in trouble. Probably. She nodded toward the doors Harold had disappeared through. Worth it. Elena looked at the paper in Rachel's hand. Ask me tomorrow. Rachel laughed softly. Then the elevator arrived. She stepped inside. Thank you. The doors closed. By sunrise, there was no dramatic reunion. No instant forgiveness. No promise that 11 lost years could somehow be recovered. There was only a daughter sitting beside her father's new hospital bed. A father finally understanding that an apology did not entitle him to anything. And on the table between them sat a folded piece of paper with two crooked words. Call her. This time, he didn't have to. She was already there. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who understands that an apology can't erase the past. But sometimes it can finally end the silence.